The Saturday Special on KSCO.
Josh Stevens.
MZ, Michael Zwerling.
May I ask you a personal question?
Take it away.
Do you think racism, I mean real race, not just little tinges of it, but real racism exists within our KSCO on-air signal area? You know, Monterey, Salinas, Santa Cruz, and spilling into Silicon Valley. Do you think it is an issue here? That's all everybody's talking about.
Yeah, well, let's think about the fact we also reach the Central Valley and more of those rural parts. Okay. I could definitely agree. Yes.
That it's alive and well?
I wouldn't say that it's alive and well, but it's definitely alive. Like, it's about as alive as a bottle of kombucha. Because, you know, Santa Cruz loves their kombucha.
I don't know quite what to say, so I'll turn it over to Dave Michaels.
That was a good analogy, Josh. That was good. Good morning, MZ. How are you?
I don't know yet, to be honest.
You know, that racism question is very interesting because I think partly it's unavoidable. I think racism is ingrained in a lot of humans. And I don't know if racism is so much as it is people stick with their culture a lot. And that's an interesting question.
Well, I think it's really being blown way out of proportion.
It is. You know what I saw yesterday, MZ? What was really, really interesting is I was driving along West Cliff Drive, and I saw a whole bunch of people out there, one in particular, one crazy-looking woman in her car. And she had, you know, George Floyd and all these other names pasted around her car, and she was pumping her fist, honking her horn, and she was stuck in the same line as kids who are graduating, and they're honking their horns too, but they're graduating, right? They're happy because they're graduating. This lady's upset about something, and as she's driving, I see a whole bunch of, they're mainly Caucasian people, I'll say, and they were just going, yeah, F racism and F white, and F. I'm thinking, man, that is just so weird.
They were all young people, right?
No, they're older people.
Oh, they really?
Yes, they were older people. I couldn't believe it. It was weird. It was really, really weird. I didn't see any black people out there, you know, doing the protests. I didn't see any blacks.
I've been starting to thinking that being black in Santa Cruz or anywhere near this liberal mecca is illegal or something, because you don't.
They just don't exist, like Bigfoot. They just don't exist.
I've had a hell of a time finding a black person or two to be on this program today. Mm-hmm. And I have tried. I have tried very diligently without success. And so what we're going to... I did finally succeed in getting a recording of not one, but two black people who look at things in profoundly different ways. And we're going to play those, hopefully, if the equipment, if I can do it.
Good. All right. Well, I look forward to listening, MZ.
Thank you. The Dave Cave today.
Dave Cave. Every Saturday, MZ. Now, everybody knows, some people know that I'm going to be taking off this week. And it doesn't matter what week that is. I'm always here Saturdays. Every Saturday, 10 a.m. till 2 p.m., unless it's Christmas or... that's about the only holiday I can think of. I'd rather be with the kids than to be here. Every Saturday from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m., I am out there in the Dave Cave. If you're not sure, call 218-5726. You can call or text, and I'll get right back to you, 831-218-KSCO.
Okay, and so you'll be gone next week on a well-deserved break.
Right, but I'm still going to be around if anybody wants to buy longevity. Call that number, and I'll get you hooked up.
Now, what about the days of delivery? Are they gone, or do they still...
No, I still do that. Every Thursday, I'm in Salinas. Every Friday, I'm in Monterey. This week, though, the entire week, I'll be in the San Lorenzo Valley. So if anybody wants to order anything, call me, and I can meet you within 10 minutes, probably.
In the San Lorenzo Valley?
In the San Lorenzo Valley. That's Boulder Creek, the Mount Hermon area, Scotts Valley, Felton, Brookdale... I can meet you anywhere up there. It's beautiful up there. Geez, I just got back from a hike up there this morning, MZ. Went for a hike up by the Garden of Eden. It was absolutely beautiful.
Garden of Eden?
Yeah.
You could find parking?
You know what, Josh? I got out there at 6:30 this morning, so yeah, I did find parking. But by the time I got back, it was just completely packed. There was absolutely... The only spot left was the one that I left behind.
And that was at 6:30 this morning?
No, when I left, it was packed.
No, but when you got there...
When I got there was just a few cars,
What time?
At 6:30.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And
it's
the Garden of Eden.
oh, it's beautiful, MZ. Just absolutely beautiful. We should go for a walk. You can do it easily. There's one good uphill, about a 5-minute, maybe 10-minute uphill.
Listen, the more incline, the better.
Yeah.
Me. I walk better on inclines, way better, climbing hills and mountains than flat.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It makes no sense. I don't understand.
It's like you're from San Francisco or something.
Oh, that could be it, Josh Stevens.
Okay, MZ. I'm out at the cave 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. today, every Saturday.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Good morning. A brighter day is here. Good morning. May we bring you cheer.
We've got time, we've got tunes, we've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today, you know, on KSCO Radio.
What's this? We haven't even invited phone calls, and there's someone on the line who wants to defend KSCO, knows Dave Allen. Wow. Dave Allen moved to heaven a few years ago, and maybe through technology, we might be able to establish a link. That would be wonderful. Who knows what's going to happen today, gang? Stay tuned.
Good morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
I'm going to apologize for the possible technical difficulties in advance. So if they happen, you sort of expect it. But I will remind our listeners that we at KSCO have the finest technical difficulties of any radio station in the country and probably the planet. And as I teased earlier in this program, if you can't find a black person, I've been thinking seriously about limiting the phone callers today to black people only. Yes, let's do it. Ben in Santa Cruz, I don't think you're black. You want to defend KSCO?
You should give him an exception because he wants to defend.
He should be an exception. Should we do that now or should I play
let's get it out of the way.
All right, get it out. And then after that, black people only. And if I have egg on my face because nobody calls, because no black people are listening or no black people want to even participate, then we'll look at revising that rule. But for now, this Saturday special, the callers will be confined to black people only. Because I've had a hell of a time, as I was telling Dave Michaels. I wanted to get some black people, one or more, to talk about the racial situation, which I think is being blown out of proportion. But what do I know? All right. All right. Here, let me get Ben in Santa Cruz. You're on KSCO, and thank you for calling.
Hey, everybody. I just want to set the record straight. I grew up in Santa Cruz on the west side. Mike Zwerling knows me personally. I was the one who helped Dave Allen start his radio
remember it.
station.
Sure.
Yeah. And I can tell you emphatically, there is no racism at KSCO 1080 AM.
Oh, wait a minute. Did I even suggest that?
I'm telling you right now. Now let me give a quick little history of where I grew up. I grew up on the west side in the circles on the wrong side of the tracks. The right side of the tracks was beyond King Street. And everything else, all the working class folks whose parents worked at Lipton and all the big factories out here, we were all mixed race, black, white, Hispanic, and Filipino. And that was the neighborhood I grew up in. And my father, when he retired from the Air Force, worked as a supervisor at Jolly Green Giant, and we all used to pick strawberries together. And you know what I'm saying? So this whole idea that there was racism in Santa Cruz, it was small, if there was any, and it was very few. And the people I grew up with were multiculturally mixed, diverse, and we all surf. People say black people don't surf. That's a bunch of BS. I grew up with plenty of black people that surf. I don't know where that stuff came from. And then as we grew up, going to Santa Cruz High and Mission Hill, and everywhere we went, the teaching assistants that used to come down and tutor us and work with our teachers here in Santa Cruz, they were all coming out of UCSC, and they are the ones that were promoting this racial, we called it racial divisiveness. We were like, why are they always saying this about that and then telling us to think this? And they were just making stuff up to make us think that we had to think like them. And that wasn't how it was growing up in Santa Cruz. So everyone took a back seat. And the reason why you're never going to have no, if you use the correct term, African Americans, my friends who I grew up with laugh at that term. You're never going to have anybody from Santa Cruz get on the radio station because they think it's all a big joke when you want to talk about this stuff. They think that the rich, upper middle class white students that moved here from all over hell and back to come here and then jam their philosophies down our throats, it's a joke. And UCSC never took into consideration any opinions or ideas from anyone here because the truth is none of the people I grew up with were down with Maoist, Marxist, communist garbage. That's what it really came down to. We were working class. Everyone I knew, everybody's parents were working their butts off, surviving. We barely had enough money to be on the T-ball team or play Pop Warner football. That was a big deal. But these rich students would come down and, after a night of drinking and partying, they'd come down and then express all these, virtue, what do they call that, virtue signaling or whatever. See, I don't even talk their language. Yet I do have an education, but not like theirs. And that's the kind of stuff that we used to talk about on the Dave Allen Going to Meeting show. And I'll tell you what, Mike, one of the really good guys you had was Harry
Lee Curtis?
Hartman.
Oh, Steve Hartman. Yeah.
Steve.
Uh-huh.
Steve Hartman.
Well, Steve hasn't moved to heaven yet, and I think he listens to KSCO occasionally from his perch in Montana. I think.
Oh, wow. You live up there now?
Oh, yeah. He got sick and tired of Santa Cruz years ago. He threatened to move away if something happened, and that something, whatever it was, did happen. And so he moved away.
That's about what I'm about to do. All of my friends, all of my culturally diverse friends I grew up with in the circles no longer live here because they got bought out and priced out by the rich East Coast whites that are super divisive and super racist. They hate white people.
So you are saying, wait a minute, they hate white people?
Yeah, they got all this dogma about being white guilt, this, that, and the other thing. I don't even know what planet they're from. They're always trying to say, you're guilty because I don't know where they come off with this crap. And my friends, they laugh. It's so funny to all of us, the way they talk and that whole left-wing twist on everything. It's just bizarre.
So you're going to leave just like Hartman did?
Oh, hell yeah, I'm done. I'm moving out, getting out of California.
Where are you going to go to?
I like the rural areas of Montana, Wyoming, Utah, anywhere that you can farm.
Well, you should get in touch with me, MZ at KSCO.com, and I'll put you in touch with Hartman. He's made a great new life for himself up in, I think it's Lincoln, Montana, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, check this out, Mike. I just had a conversation this morning with, one of my black friends, longtime local. I don't want to say his name because he likes to stay out of politics. And my other friend, who's a commercial fisherman, one of the things that pissed us all off when our parents started losing their jobs was when the left-wingers that hate corporations and hate this and hate that ran a lot of these big companies out of town so that my friend's parents, including my own, were no longer gainfully employed. A lot of the kids ended up commercial fishing because luckily our Italian friends hired us as deckhands to help us make ends meet, and a lot of our friends became captains and got their own boats. And then while all this is going on, now the left-wing Marxists that hate capitalism just recently set fire to a bunch of a collective of crab pots up in the Bay Area. So now the crabbers can't even go crabbing. I mean, this is the kind of stuff these anarchists are doing. They're destroying everything.
Okay, so you're saying racism is alive and well in our local areas, Santa Cruz?
In our local area, racism is alive and well against working class, normal people that don't want to have anything to do with politics. The racism is the left, Marxist, Maoist, communists that hate anyone that's for just being themselves and being free. They don't want you to think. They want you to toe the line.
Well, isn't that sort of more in line with the
It's
term
a cultural racism.
Bigotry rather than racism? Because
I'd say it's a cultural racism against people that are basically not into the socialist left. They culturally come after you, and they're racist towards you as a whole.
See, I haven't seen any of that, and I guess it's because I'm not out and about as much in Santa Cruz. But I did find it very, very strange. You know, I didn't spend hours and hours, but I made a few phone calls to see about to a few black people I know who I thought would be interesting guests on the program here, either via the phone by call-in or here in the studio, just to comment on the national conversation of these days.
I forgot to mention, Mike, we had gay people that lived in Santa Cruz when I was growing up that we were all friends with. So I know that the LGBTQFG whatever deal has always said, there's all this racism towards gays in Santa Cruz. That's a bunch of BS, too. I had two uncles that were gay.
Okay, yeah, Santa Cruz is one of the gay capitals. Hey, Ben, before you go, there's someone who wants to talk about you behind your back. But we're gonna put Mary and Seabright on before you leave. Mary, hi Mary, you're on before Ben leaves.
Hey Ben, hats off to you. I'm a native too. I came to Santa Cruz at 9 months old, so I've seen it all. I've seen the university do what it did to our town, and all of what you said about how all this conflict is driven is, I didn't grow up. I grew up very average middle class, more in Live Oak than on the west side. You know, I grew up just like you. My dad was a hardworking mechanic, and we just wanted our piece of the pie. We just wanted to be normal. You know, we just wanted
a normal house.
Well, normal.
I wanted to be able to go to the beach.
What?
We just wanted to be able to live, have okay food, and not wear hand-me-downs.
Exactly.
We all wore hand-me-downs, and if whatever hand-me-downs didn't fit, we'd take to the church and we'd share them.
We weren't asking for the moon. We just wanted to live in the town we grew up in. But they took it away from us. They just came in and stole it.
Done. It's gone.
When you say they, you're talking about political people. We're not talking about racism now, are we?
No.
Am I missing something?
Well,
I want to talk about racism, and racism is the big topic of the day for the last couple weeks.
Okay, racism is the tool. He's right. What Ben said, label it what it is. It's racism, the term, is a tool.
Classism, I guess.
Well, they do. They want to rub out the middle class. They want to rub out the white middle class because we resist it. We resist the left.
It's not just the white. It's not just the white middle class. I'm sorry to say, my Hispanic brothers I grew up with and my black buddies, them too.
Now, wait a second. Listen, I love you both. You're great callers, but I wish we could stay on the subject here.
The racism, Ben, what I'm saying, what I called Michael is Ben is he's zeroing in on the racism is, I didn't hear the opening of the show, but the racism.
Right here, Josh. What is it, Josh? Are you gesturing me to move on?
No, not that.
What?
What I wanted to actually say real quick is that they are onto something, and part of this, and even we've had people in the news also discuss this as well, in that it's not so much as a divide of race. Well, that is part of the equation, but there's another part of that equation, and that is the division of class. Like, that's what's going on right now. There's not only racial tensions, but class tensions as well. because people are getting fed up with the actions of the affluent, as well as getting fed up with the intolerance that's going on. And part of the reason why the two callers also mentioned the whole part about the university is because that is an institution that is bringing in all these affluent folk that are making Santa Cruz unaffordable and making it where these people who have grown up here not be able to continue to grow and raise families here. So I think that's what they're trying to get onto. And
Is that right, you guys? Is that right, what he said?
He's correct. And it's social engineering is what it is.
Well, Ben, what they did by bringing in it's the elite white class that have a lot of money that can drive their agenda. They've been driving their agenda our lifetime, Ben. I don't know how old you are, but you were probably the same age. I grew up.
I'm 55 now.
Okay, I got 5 years on you. So I've witnessed the transformation of this town from the most ideal place to grow up on earth to a place where you drive down the road and you think, you're so alienated by what has gone on here.
Yes. Mike, I want to touch on one last thing.
Go ahead.
Mike knows me back in the day when we were young and wild. Mike used to come down there to the Catalyst, and we just remember them days.
I sure do, especially when it was in the first place, the St. George Hotel.
When I got out of the Army, I got back into bouncing, and I bounced before that. I got recruited when I was 17 because me and all my homeboys, we were pretty rough around the edges, and Richie, this guy from the Bronx, New York, a black man, opened up one of the first clubs that was very diverse in Santa Cruz called Club Culture.
I remember that.
I do too.
I got hired as a bouncer there when I was 17 because I was a big boy and grew up on the west side. I was comfortable around all the different races because we all grew up together and we were all roughnecking together. And we all ended up bouncing together because that was the only jobs we could get because the university students took all our opportunities.
Wow.
So that's why a lot of us local boys worked as bouncers and bartenders because that's where we fit in.
Right.
And we knew how to handle business. So years later, I ended up bouncing at the Catalyst. Mike knows me from there, and I seen it all. All this stuff you see with Antifa, with the bricks getting laid out, that was going on back in the 90s and the early 80s. I mean, the late 80s when I started. They'd roll up from Berkeley and UCSC, and they'd dump up truckloads of rocks in our beautiful downtown planter pots. Our downtown was beautiful back then. And these guys would come down there and dump rocks off into the planter boxes. And then late at night when we started to have celebratory, awesome nights of Santa Cruz, these sons of, whatever, would roll up in their brand new Audis and cars and their fancy cars, and they'd get out, blacked out with face masks on, and start jamming these rocks and bricks through everybody's storefront. And so Mike remembers those days, and this has not changed. This has been going on. It's the same old game, same old players, and I can't tell you.
Ben, I want to thank you for calling and adding immeasurably to the Saturday Special, and you too, Mary and Seabright. Here's John in Aptos, who has a recommendation of a person of color.
Yeah, hey, Mike. First of all, before I get to what I was calling about, that was kind of hard to listen to. The diversity in Santa Cruz and for people that are from other places is better now than it was when that previous caller was talking about. I know people that have been here for 20, 25 years that are here illegally, but still are able to feel secure. I mean, we're an accepting community. And as far as the university goes, I don't know why we just don't say, you're not going to grow anymore, you're there, and make them build more housing up there. They got the land to do it, but that's not why I'm calling. There's a guy that calls your radio station, and I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. He may be listening. And he was a counselor here in Aptos for years and years and years. His name is Wendell. Now, I know there's another guy, Wendell, that calls. I think he calls from over in Nevada somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But this Wendell, and I've heard him call the radio station before. I haven't heard him call your program. But
yeah, he does. He does call.
He's a black guy, and I tell you what.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I
you
tell
can't
you what.
tell from a person's voice.
Oh, yeah, he's got a distinctive voice, but I tell you, he is the brightest, most. He was a counselor here for youth, basically, and in the Justice Department. He worked here for years in Aptos. He lives out in the country, just out of Aptos. I'm not going to tell you where, but.
Come on, tell me. That way I can get in touch with him and maybe, because he already likes KSCO because he calls it every once in a while, right? That would have been, if I would have known that, Wendell is A, black, and B, had his phone number, I could have called to have him be on this show.
Well, I would give you his last name, but I don't.
No, don't do that. That's okay. But
I'm not going to do that.
Right.
But he has a master's degree from in counseling from University of Redlands, and I tell you what, he is one of the finest people that I have ever met. I mean,
all right, listen. Here's the deal. Here, I am still astounded by how few black people you come in contact with in Santa Cruz County. It blows me away. It's always been that way. Yes, I went to school. I went to high school with several really cool black people, and I thought there were very few people then. And it seems to me there are even fewer now, percentage-wise. But I don't know.
Yeah, I know. We got to go to Vermont and check it out and see how black people are. But I grew up in Gilroy, and when I was young, back in the 50s, there weren't any black people. There's Hispanics, Italians, Portuguese. It was a very diverse community and pretty much got along.
Right. All right. Well, listen, things.
I think Hispanics, by and large, I know they get taken advantage of because there's some of them are here illegally, but
they work. Boy, do they work.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Anyhow, John, I got to move on. I'm sorry, but thank you for calling 479-1080. From John, we go to Sean about racism in Santa Cruz County.
Yeah, the one thing that I have encountered is there is lots of anti-white bigotry. And that's the racism.
That's a racism. It's not just against blacks. It could be against us whiteys.
Yeah, and actually, I got this tip from, I don't know if you've ever seen Ben Shapiro.
Oh, many times on YouTube, yeah.
Well, he suggested this, but I had a Hispanic woman accuse me of being a racist, and I used this thing that I got from Ben Shapiro, and I said, "You're a horrible and evil person for accusing me of being a racist with no evidence." And
did she back off?
Well, she was horrified that I called her bluff, and she said I'm an evil and horrible person for accusing her of that.
Okay. Well, maybe. Wait a minute. Josh, we haven't gotten to the point where we're invoking the black callers only going forward rule, right?
Yeah.
Because Sean, you're not black, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay. From this point forward, only on the Saturday Special, unless we rescind this rule, because maybe we might not have any takers. I only want to hear from black people calling 479-1080 in area 831. Okay? Sean, thank you very much for calling the radio station. Very much. Okay, we have total free, clear lines right now. Okay? 479-1080, that's area 831. You can email mz@ksco.com. The question is there true racism of any consequence? Sure, they're little people, they make their little remarks that make you think, hey, they're a little racist inside there. I'm talking about serious racism. I grew up Jewish here, and there was a Jewish community, and I kept hearing my parents talk about. My mother would talk about being called little Jew girl, when she grew up in Brooklyn, and she said it was everywhere, even though most of the people where she lived were Jewish, and I just almost couldn't even fathom that because I didn't notice any of that. Much more recently, like within the last year or so, I've noticed some severe hatred toward Jews. It's very severe, like scary.
That's a surprise. Well, on touching back on this whole class versus race versus the world thing, another facet that I've noticed that is what's wrong within our county, and I did briefly mention this to you off the air, and it's the fact that we lack diversity even in business. I mean, can anyone think of a quality Asian food market, for example? Let's think about that for a second. I can't think of a place to get like a specific type of noodle to make a delicious ramen. Hell, I can't even think of a good ramen restaurant.
So that's why you call from if you happen to be calling in, a lot of times it's from San Jose, where there are a number of such markets.
Yes, there's actually like a more of a selection, and not to mention competition as well. And when you have all these competing local businesses, you get better deals on everything. Like
I have a friend who recently turned me on to chicken mushrooms.
What's that?
Mushrooms that taste just like chicken, and they taste like you're chewing on protein. I mean, they are so friggin' delicious that I think you're a consummate professional.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking seriously of relinquishing the microphone to you for the rest of the Saturday Special so I can go over the hill to 99 Ranch Market or Ranch 99 Market and pick up some chicken mushrooms. Because I've decided that's what I would like. I wish I was eating that right now rather than performing the Saturday Special.
That sounds delicious, and whoever grows it must be a fun guy.
And they're very, very, they're like delicacies, I think, right? I mean, you hadn't heard of them. I hadn't heard of them. I've had them several times, and I've masticated a bunch of times with the chicken mushrooms.
But yeah, let's truly think about that for a second.
So far, there's no callers to 479-1080. We might have to lift the black callers only ban, because that could well mean that there are not, as I know and believe, there are very few black people in the KSCO listening in the Santa Cruz area. But KSCO blankets Seaside, and Seaside is almost all black, I thought. Okay, here the phone's ringing. The phone's
blindly
ringing.
Accept it? Or
go ahead. Screen the call. Make sure that the person is black. How do you do that? Unless it's FaceTime or something. Because people will call and they'll say they're black and they're not. So Regina, Monterey County is a POC. What in the world? Oh, person of color. Okay, great. Did you verify that? He's nodding his head. Regina.
Yes.
Are you truly a person of color?
Yes, I am.
And what color might that be?
I am of African ancestry. For many people, they call it African American, but
okay.
I am an African American.
Okay, great. Thank you for calling. You a frequent KSCO listener, or did you just happen to be, scanning the dial today?
Well, I generally do a little commuting, and so I listen to talk radio, and this is one of the stations periodically that I listen to. And I just happened to be listening this morning, and so I'm hearing what you're talking about, and I am calling in about this issue of racism.
Yeah. Okay, I can't wait to hear your thoughts, and I'm dead serious. I kid around a lot, but I'm really seriously interested in this. By the way, Regina is a beautiful name that happens to be the name of my sister.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So anyhow, So please weigh in on what's going on. I've been saying, I don't know if you heard me say, I think it's sort of overblown, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's high time that, what do you think?
Well, just so you know, the bottom line is that people of African ancestry, African Americans in this country, are treated differently every day. Now, I am a professional person with a college education, and I walk out my door every morning hoping that I don't have to deal with racism, but every day I deal with racism.
Wow.
And
okay, please give us an example. I don't mean to interrupt, but this is real important.
Okay, so one example is when I'm kind of like an advocate for people that are from underserved communities. I do that as a volunteer. When people get stopped by police, get arrested, or so on and so forth. So I accompanied a person to court on this week, and the judge happened to be calling various people, various attorneys, and said, well, I see at least 10 defendants in the courtroom. You must have, another calendar call. And the people that were in the courtroom were of African ancestry, and none of them were criminals that had court proceedings. They were there to support someone that was. So those are kind of like, people just automatically make these statements, and they don't realize the impact. The other thing is when I go into a store, I was in a sandwich shop, and I was there first. And the person behind the counter, 2 white women walked in, and they served them first instead of me. Those kinds of things happen every single day to people of African ancestry on many occasions.
Wow. That's horrible.
Well, the other thing, too, is that all of the laws are made against people of color. And I think that the criminal justice system is for people that have money to pay for high-powered attorneys, and people that come from underserved communities don't have the kind of resources to pay for high-powered attorneys. They end up in the prison system, and the whole system, if you just look at the laws that exist today, are exacted against poor people, and the prison industrial complex. People are making money off of the backs of former children that have ancestors that came here in bondage. And all you have to do is look at the data and see the disproportionate numbers of African Americans that are overrepresented in negative systems that exist in this country, right here in every county, in every city that you go to. And so I frequent Santa Cruz on occasion. I do see African Americans. Santa Cruz people seem to be liberal, but when it comes to voting for doing what is right for all people, there is not a fair distribution of resources going into communities of color, in particular for African Americans. COVID-19 is another example. The number one people that are dying, and just go on the CDC website and you'll see, they are of African ancestry. And the testing sites that are existing in some of these counties are set up in places that are not even in the community where the people have the highest rate of infection. So those are all examples of racism. Even if people don't mean to be, that's exactly what is happening.
Wow. Okay. I've just locked you in presumptuously thinking that you would be a great guest to hold on without even asking you if that's okay. And then Josh has put on the screen here, ask Regina to get her to call her friends. And because this is what we want to do on the radio today. Now, we can't do both. We can't, I suppose we can. We could play the Michael Harrison rap thing that has 2 very prominent black, national talk show hosts. I think each interview is about 10 minutes. And Michael suggested, when I was complaining to him that I can't find any people today to go on the radio, any black people to discuss this situation, which is a big major news story today, these days. He suggested that, hey, it was right on your own station last evening. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Michael Harrison Rap that comes on 6 o'clock on Fridays. Flight 1080, shuts down early, lands early at 6 o'clock, and for the 6 to 7 hour, we have the Michael Harrison Rap, which is excellent.
Is that what you needed help with finding? Or pulling?
And I've got it already. So Regina, let's maybe the best of both worlds. Why don't I play? One of those, audio clips from yesterday's Michael Harrison program.
Before we do that, let's do something real quick that might even garner some calls.
Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't heard it, but I'd be interested in hearing.
Okay, what were you saying, Josh?
Okay, so another thing, let's also not forget that we recently had a recall in the city of Santa Cruz, and one of those people that were recalled were a person of color.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you didn't hear that because of the way this is wired, Regina. Josh said that we had a recall election recently in Santa Cruz, and one of the council people who was recalled is a person of color. Black color, right? Okay, and Josh.
Yeah, I am aware of that. I did see that on the news.
Okay.
Station.
All right. Well, listen. Would you do this? Would you call back and maybe call some people who who might want to chime in on this on a local level? Because we do have this thing that I'm going to play a little bit now, because it's just sort of working out that way. There aren't any other callers on the line. So would you call back and maybe bring some other perspectives? Would you, if possible? I mean, that'd be great.
I would be more than happy to call someone that's involved in civil rights in my area.
Great.
And,
who can comment on what? Because of course, I'm a whitey, right? And to me, it doesn't seem like this area is particularly racist at all. But what do I know? I don't go through what you go through every day. And thank you for calling and sharing that with us.
Well, because you're from a privileged class of people who have doors open for them based on your privilege, then you wouldn't probably understand or know what it's like to be in the shoes of someone of African ancestry. But I can assure you.
Sure, but if I was in the South even today, I don't mean to interrupt. If I was in the South even today, even with my privileged color and background and so forth, I'm sure I would think it's very different there and actually quite racist, even in this day and age, than I believe it is around here. That's all I'm saying, and I don't know whether you would agree with me or not, but... thanks for calling the Saturday Special, and please call back and maybe bring some of your friends and associates or so. We're going to lift...
How long is this going to
We're
go
on for another hour and 10 minutes. We're on right up until noon time, okay? So 10 minutes left in this hour, and then a full hour after the 6 minutes of the news and traffic and weather and everything. I'm going to play this interview from Michael Harrison interviewing Joe Madsen yesterday on the Michael Harrison Rap. Okay, stand by here.
More complicated than just left versus right. Get ready for a comprehensive overview of the issue. We have on tap two of the leading African-American voices in American news talk radio, and they have opposite views on the issue. Hang on to your earbuds because you're about to hear some intense radio. Let's begin with Joe Madsen, the morning host of SiriusXM Satellite Radio's Urban View channel. Joe is the highest-ranking African-American radio talk show host on the Talkers Heavy 100. I conducted the following interview last Sunday as the civil unrest on the streets of our cities was spreading across America. What do you think about the general conversation that there's rampant racism in America and that there's a conflict between the races? Beyond this police problem, at this point, some people say they don't see it. A number of...
they're freaking blind, and they're BSing. Look. This racism is the original sin of the United States of America. I'm intelligent enough, learned enough, smart enough to read the arguments that the founding fathers dealt with when it came to the issue of slavery. This is America's original sin, and it has continued. Hell, we fought a war over it. We have Supreme Court decisions that have tried to deal with it, who have tried to end it, Reconstruction, and then, of course, Reconstruction was ended. And what happened? Almost another 100 years of black codes, not just in the South, but also in discriminatory practices in the North, where people couldn't buy a house no matter how much money they had, no matter how much education they had. Well, I mean, come on. I mean, anybody that wants to engage in that kind of discussion is denying American history. It's denying, quite candidly, it's denying global history. It's denying, the attitude that Europeans had, Michael, about Africa being the dark continent, about Henry the Navigator, saying that we have to Christianize these savages in the country. In the meantime, we'll control their resources. And the most valuable resource they found were human beings who happened to be dark-skinned people. I don't even engage in that kind of conversation. Anybody who sits up there and has the nerve to deny it. Look, I'm going to be very candid. I'm going to be very straight with you because I'm tired of this crap. The reality is you are either a racist or you're an anti-racist. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. And too many people participate and do racist things. And then and I've never met a racist that says he was a racist. Well, I take that back. I have dealt with these kind of folks on the phone.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next. Let me jump in here. Is there a discussion within the African American community about this? Everybody's not in agreement. I recently had a conversation with
not in agreement about what?
About the level of racism, the numbers of racism, the stat. I'm not arguing with you. I'm trying to get information here. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke with Larry Elder, who's an African American talk show host, and he cites.
Larry Elder.
But before you respond.
Stop it.
Wait, I can't stop it. I'm not going to. Stop a conversation. I'm asking you a question.
It is not. Listen.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm asking for your view.
It is not an argument. I am not arguing. I am saying to you, every time in history, that black people speak up and speak out about racism, white folk go out and find the Larry Elders of the world. And to offset, they go out and find the diamonds and silks of the world, to go and offset anything that we discuss. I have said it, and I'm going to say it clearly. The original sin of this country has been race. It has been. History is replete with it. The Supreme Court is replete with it. Our culture is replete with it. I don't want to hear Larry Elder's name. I don't want to hear Diamond and Silk. I don't want to hear people who sit up here and make excuses that somehow they're not racist or victims of racism, or racism isn't this or isn't that. Look, is it as bad as it was? Of course not. We don't have slavery, but we fought a civil war to end it. Oh, and by the way, you have people who say, well, the Civil War wasn't about racism. The hell it wasn't. Every single constitution of the Confederate States maintained racism in their slavery in their constitution. So I'm like I said, you can hear it. I'm not arguing with you. I am telling you, all of my life, whenever Martin spoke out, there were black folk they'd run out and get to speak against Martin. Malcolm would speak out. They'd run out and find some black person to counter Malcolm every single time. And as far as I'm concerned, y'all can have them, because the reality is They are nothing more than mouthpieces to dict what is right before our eyes, part of our culture and part of our history. Bottom line, end of conversation.
That's Joe Madison, the morning host on Sirius XM Satellite Radio's Urban View channel. We'll continue our conversation with Joe Madison in just a moment. Following that, we'll be joined by Larry Elder, one of Talk Radio's leading conservative African-American hosts who has a different point of view than Joe Madison. You're plugged into the Michael Harrison Wrap on KSCO.
We're going to see how this evolves, okay? I don't think we're going to play any more of them. We got the idea of where Joe's coming from. But it looks like, let's see, Josh has some Steve in Monterey, who is a person of color, but I'd like to put him on. But Josh, are you going to put him on hold so I can put him on? Okay, good. It's on hold. So here comes Steve in Monterey about racism. Hey, Steve, thanks for calling the Saturday Special. Hey, you're on the air, Steve.
Mike, how you doing today?
Good.
Yeah,
good.
I'm here. I've talked to you before. It's been a while. But,
well, thanks for calling again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an interesting subject. I thought about it, but then I said, you got to have some pushback on Regina, man, because she's making it sound like the white people are out to get us, like there's a resurgence of the KKK or something, you know? I don't see it like that. I've got white people in my family, Mexicans and some others and some...
But you are yourself black, is that correct, Steve?
Oh, black as the night is. I'm going to tell you the truth.
As black as the night is. Wow.
When the grandbabies see me for the first time, they know they seen somebody different because it's all dark. It's like that, okay? They know when Papa shows up because hey, I'm a one of a kind.
God. Well, and you have a great sense of humor, too. But you think you have a different perspective from Regina, though, it sounds like. So.
Yeah, she painted everything as gloom and doom. You know, unfortunately, believe it or not, black people are racist, Michael. I mean, that's why I'm on the West Coast and not on the East Coast, because my spouse is white. And I grew up listening to how black people talked about white people all the time and still do. You know, some of those old things from the past, they think they have a right to hold on to them, man. And you know what? You can't put something off on somebody's children that their parents did. That is wrong, period. Doesn't matter how you look at it. And this is what they're doing. And within the black community, you got these propagators of hate like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. And they've essentially brainwashed people that white people owe something to black people. You know, America isn't the only country that has slavery. Every country around the world had slavery, and every ethnicity, I would think every ethnicity had black slaves, because if you found a black man running free, you were entitled to enslave them, and they did. And I've got Portuguese friends that have said, you know what? Yeah, my grandparents or great-grandparents, you know, they had slaves too. So you know what? The time for all this slavery talk it's long over. It's very divisive, and there's people that are profiting from that.
Steve, would you stay with us over the break so that we can come back to you afterwards? And Regina is still on the line; she's on hold, and I would love to put you guys together if you're into it. Okay.
Oh, that might be some fireworks there.
Well, we'll do our best to moderate it here from my seat. Okay.
Right.
So Josh, I don't know if the clock is correct here, but I'm going to tell everybody that you're listening to KSCO Santa Cruz.
We'll be keeping it sunny all around. KSCO News Talk time, 11:06. Time now for hour 2 of Saturday Special on KSCO.
Oh, hello, darling. I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time for that wonderful record show. I'd love to visit, but you'll have to call back. KSCO has the
All right, well, welcome to hour number 2 of the KSCO Racism Saturday Special. Yeah, I'm learning that there's a lot more of it going on than I thought.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
You broke your rule.
What did I do?
You said welcome to hour 2. Didn't you say, like,
No,
don't
well,
you
that's
just hate
okay.
it when people say welcome
No,
to?
did I no. If I said welcome back to hour 2, then that is incorrect.
That's the
welcome
rule breaker.
to hour 2 is correct.
Gotcha.
Okay?
I got to learn these things.
I mean, heads are going to roll around here. We don't have many rules, but we don't want people to be welcome back to hour number 2 when they're actually being welcomed to hour 2. All right, Steve in Monterey, who is a POC, a person of color. You're still there, Steve, yeah? Steve?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you for staying with us. We have Regina has never left us. We're going to put Regina back on, lock her in. Regina, meet Steve. Steve, meet Regina.
Hello.
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 Okay, good.
Hello.
Now, Regina, is it true that there is that during the time you were off, but never hung up, which is what we wanted you to stay on, or stay connected to us, that you contacted someone that you know whose name is Curtis Relaford? Is that right?
No, I did not contact Curtis. Curtis is listening in, obviously. I don't know who Curtis is, but I did.
Oh.
Contact others. I contacted others that I am aware of in the community. And so, yes, that's correct, but not Curtis.
Oh, okay. The ones
I
that...
have no idea who Curtis is.
Oh. Okay.
They're the one...
Maybe Curtis recognized my voice and or something, I don't know, but if he's from...
I just made that assumption. Josh Stevens, you tell us who Curtis... Wait a minute. Why don't we have Curtis himself tell us who he is? Curtis.
Yes.
Who are you?
My name's Curtis Relaford. I've been driving around Santa Cruz for 16 years delivering food, clothes, and building material to the Hopi Indian Reservation, playing loud music. I'm the only black man, drive a peace truck around asking for peace. Thou shalt not kill. Be the change you wish to see. This truck is about helping people. I'm the only person drive around like that. If you missed that, I think I need to get some bigger speakers.
Yeah, hold on a second, Steve. Wait. You're there, but I want to ask Curtis a question. Did I run into you at the mall and down on Pacific Avenue a few months back?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, and I told you, and I said, please call the radio, and you did. And have you been listening ever since, and you happen to be listening today?
No, someone called me from Santa Cruz and told me that y'all was doing this, and he said he recommended me to call, and that's why I called. I'm headed. I'm trying to help people, man. I'm out here on the road going to the Hopis now with a truckload of stuff, food.
I think
clothes.
that's really neat. But why do you? I don't want this to come out wrong. This question I'm going to ask: why do you limit it to the Hopis?
Because they need the help more so than anybody. There's no resource out there, and I travel all over the United States, and there's resource every in these cities and in these towns. There's no resource out there. And they
Wait a minute. Someone's talking. Is that you, Steve?
Not me.
All right, someone's talking, and I don't know who it is. It's either Steve or it's Regina, and it wasn't Regina because it was a male voice that I heard.
Well, I'm telling you, it wasn't me. It could have been somebody's radio, but it wasn't me.
Oh,
So,
okay. All right, didn't mean to interrupt you, Curtis, but anyhow, thank you for calling in. Do you think that there's clear racism in this part of the world?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Tell me why you think that. And being black yourself, I'm very interested in your perspective.
I'm down there playing love song, What the World Needs Africa. If that ain't racism, I don't know what is.
I would agree
And then
with you, of course.
people come by and tell me, did you get permission to play music? Did you get permission to park here? I have to have permission to even go down the street, man. That's racism.
Okay.
And I speak up on it, and then I get tickets. And I had 20 tickets last year. 20 sound tickets and tickets of burning sage, praying on the street. That's racism to me. Okay, and then the way certain people posture and their gestures when they approach me when I go to different meetings, United Nations meetings, and I mean a United Nations meeting. And sir, I can go on. I have stories of racism. And I've been doing this work for 16 years on the road, driving a truck around saying peace and with my arms out.
Why do you do it, especially when you are subjected to such
Because I found
disrespect?
myself. Because I found myself. I ain't letting them people stop me from loving what I do. I love everything I do. I used to ask myself, why am I here? What am I doing? Where am I going? All the time. And I found helping people was what I am supposed to be doing on this earth. And I didn't ask to go to the Hopi Reservation. I just winded up over there following these 8- and 9-year-old kids that needed shoes. And then I get to their house, they living on dirt floors. And the lady, the grandma is 95 and been waiting on the roof for 10 years. And I stayed there and I fixed that. And I got a jolt of why am I on this earth staying there for that month of fixing that roof.
Curtis, are you still there? Oh, no, Curtis somehow got taken off, or he's still there. I don't know what happened. Yeah. Curtis, we missed the last 10 seconds or something. What did you just say? Just repeat what you said.
I said I do this because I got a calling to go over to the reservation. I didn't ask for this work. It just guided me because I used to ask, why am I here on this earth? What am I doing? Where am I going? And I winded up on the Hopi, these 8- and 9-year-olds.
Since you received a phone call to call into this radio program, you probably didn't hear what went on before. Regina, who is a resident of Monterey County, also a person of color. Steve, who is also from Monterey County, also a person of color. They're both on the air with us right now. And if either one of them were to talk, they would be connected and they would be able to. I want to ask Regina to respond. Have you ever heard of Curtis? Have you seen him around? And what do you think about what he just said, Regina?
No, I don't know Curtis, and just listening to what he is doing in terms of helping the Hopi people is a wonderful act of kindness, and we need more Curtises. And I agree 100% with what Curtis said. And the guy, Steve, if he is a black man in America and he says that he hasn't experienced racism, he's either living in another planet or not really in tune to what's going on. Maybe he personally, I don't know if because, where he lives. I live in community of color over in Seaside.
You live in Seaside. Okay, talk closer to the to the handset, please, because we're losing you for a sec.
Yeah, I live in Seaside, and so and I happen to be a former president of the Monterey County branch NAACP, the oldest civil rights organization in the country. And in addition to that, if you think that there's no racism, tell that to the myriad of cases that come into this community around people that are being discriminated against, their children that are not getting equal education. So I don't know where Steve, what world he lives in, but racism is alive and well in Monterey County and over the world.
Steve, you're still there, Steve. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Okay, there's a group called Whites for Racial Equity. Yes, tell them that racism doesn't exist. They are only white people trying to deal with the racism that exists, and it's a great group of people trying to overcome their own racism. So Steve. I don't know who he is, what his experiences are, but it's great if he's never experienced
Steve,
racism.
who
The
are
bottom
you?
line
Because
is
you're
that
still connected. Who are you, Steve?
I'm the guy that just caused the firestorm, like I said, because I don't necessarily subscribe to what they say. Portions of what they say, I feel is true. I never said, Regina, that there was no racism, but I'd understand where you're coming from, being the former head of the NAACP. Like, I'm supposed to be impressed with that. I don't think the NAACP
I don't think you need to be impressed with
does
anything.
much. Hello. I'm talking now, miseducated woman. I am talking. I let you talk, so please zip it at this point, okay? This is what I'm saying. See, this is the problem with black people, that if you don't agree with them, they're going to shut you down, try to talk you out of your own mind, make you feel bad because you don't have this consensus with them. She didn't listen. You didn't listen to a word I said, Regina. You didn't listen to a word I said. I said there was no systemic racism.
What?
You're putting words in my mouth. No, I'm not.
Okay, you know what? If there's no,
I didn't grow up in Seaside.
Okay, wait a minute. There's got to be some order. There's got to be some order. No one will be able to understand. Will be able to get anything out of this program, guys. If one person doesn't talk and then be courteous to the other, and then the other person be courteous. So here, Regina.
We need to hear from someone else because I don't want to. If Steve thinks that there's no racism that exists in
he didn't say that.
Systems that exist.
Okay, hold on.
She goes again.
Hold on, Regina. Please don't go anywhere. Just hold on. And I know stuff Steve says is going to make you want to jump out, but we'll give you plenty of time. Just finish your thought here, Steve, and then we'll have Regina back on.
Yeah. See, I grew up in the South. I didn't grow up in Seaside. I know what it's like. I know racism exists. I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to be pulled over by cops. I know what it feels like to be chased in your own projects by other black people, like in Chicago, that's killing everybody. Let me tell you, racism exists on all sides. And when you look at the data and you look at the white people that's killed by black people, it's like a 60% difference between the white people that's killed, the black people that's killed by white people. These people, the NAACP and all these other people, they're profiting on the victimization of black people. And that's why the Rasmussen poll this morning shows that 40% of black people now approve of our great president, Donald Trump. 40%. He got 8% in the last election. And I've been called all kind of names by people like Regina. Oh, you're a racist, or you're going to put us back in chains. Because once you break with this black mentality and try to do something that may be good for you and other people, see, I don't believe in keeping this hate going, Michael. If you've never personally done anything to me as an individual, I'm not going to paint you with a broad brush. Now, this cop, based on what he did that got this firestorm going, we can't say conclusively. There's a lot of stuff going in Minnesota, and I have said that, look, it kind of looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, but, at the end of the day, what we know we got is a bad cop with a bad history, because he's been bad to it looks like Latino people and Asian peoples. He's just a bad cop. But look who's tearing up our communities right now. They're kind of come together, the blacks, the whites, everybody else, but they're tearing down black community. And they say this is somehow going to help this discussion? No, it's not. It's going to set black people back in race relationships. Like, this isn't what Martin Luther King had in mind when he put this man, Martin Luther King, knew what he was getting into.
Hey, who's talking? Is that Curtis talking right now?
Thank you so much.
Who is talking?
Okay, can I jump in here?
Sure. Here, I'm gonna.
Anyway, I'm not really going to entertain the ideology of Steve because obviously he has his own little experiences or what have you. But I'm going to tell you something. Those of us that believe in freedom cannot rest until the lives of black men, black mothers' sons, as important as the lives of white men, white mothers' sons, we cannot rest until that freedom comes. And so the bottom line for me is that I'm going based on statistical data and life experiences. And when you look at the school system in every community of color, you will see that children of African ancestry get relegated to more often than not, they get relegated to special education, and that's inadequate when they get tests. I'm just telling you, the bottom line for me is that this is not about anything. I just wanted to give you a context in terms of civil rights, because the NAACP is a volunteer organization. They are not profiting from anything. Everybody that volunteers for the NAACP does not get paid. And you have NAACP branches all throughout the country and in Japan and in Europe, and they're dealing with everybody benefits from the work of the NAACP, not just people of African ancestry. If it weren't for that organization, then we would not have the Civil Rights Act. We would not have all the laws that exist today, but those laws are not enough. We have regressed in this country in terms of looking at the data. Look at the prison population. When you go to prison, you cannot vote, okay? When you are in prison, you should be able to vote. And when you get out of prison and you have done your time, you should get your gun rights restored. But the bottom line for me is that I am just saying that there are many poor people in this country, and right here in our community that I live in, and right here in this county, I am a former retired social worker, and I am coming from that perspective. I see day to day, up and down, and I've dealt with social workers all throughout the 58 counties in California based on my collaboration with them, and the same thing exists. All of these systems that are designed to help people continue to oppress people. You know why? Because the people in charge of most of these systems are people that are not of African ancestry, people that have not lived the experiences, and they don't know how to provide preventive services. When you provide services to people that are prevention-based, they should come from people that understand the culture. So culturally congruent approaches to working with people is extremely important, and so I just don't see that existing. All of these nonprofit organizations do a lot of great work, but the people that are being impacted the most aren't at the table oftentimes. They're not the decision makers, and that is part of the problem.
Do you see that? Do you see any of that changing?
Is around.
Regina, do you see any of that changing? Because you make a very good point here. You know, do you think more and
Well, the only way it's going to change is if people show up, have a seat at the table, and are part of the decision-making process. And I think that that is not happening because the people that show up to city council meetings and to school board meetings are people that aren't the ones that have been impacted. The poor people that are in these communities are trying to make ends meet. They work 2 and 3 jobs. So I don't see it changing unless the people, you have to do things differently. You can't just say, okay, everybody has access to go to these meetings. A lot of people don't have transportation to get to the meetings. Some of these Board of Supervisors meetings are during the time that working class people are working, and they don't have, people that are single parents raising children. They just literally are working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. So, no, I don't see things changing unless the people rise up and change the laws and vote people into office that are impacted so that the laws can be changed to bring about an equal distribution of America's resources, which, quite frankly, the ruling class of this country are the ones that are sitting back, and people that are working as the clerks in Walmart and all these other stores are the people of color. They don't share in the profits of the companies that exist. So the bottom line for me is that racism is alive and well, and you didn't have blacks calling in, but there are black people here. So I did call some folks and ask them to call in. So
and we do have a full board of phone callers right now.
Great.
So Curtis, thank you for calling in. If you have something quick to add,
can I just say something? Can I say something right quick?
Go ahead.
I got started with this truck delivering food and clothes and stuff. I got started when Hurricane Katrina hit. And you guys, racism is live and kicking, brother. I get called nigger this, nigger that. Go back to Africa. These are facts. I got it on video, man. It's live. And I think we should pay attention and ask for forgiveness. Go to God. God will help you and see clearly on what to do with it and how to act on it. We don't even know how to communicate with each other. I'm listening to you bickering and going on. Dude, one person at a time. You can't hear two people talking at the same time and understand what you're saying.
I know. I guess I'm not doing as good a job as I should.
My website is followyourheartactionnetwork.org, and it's volunteer. I don't have no money or anything, but the white folks give me money, black folks give me money. I don't pay attention to no racism, and all the peoples are in hatred mode. I'm into love, compassion, having empathy for all people. That's what I'm studying. So thank you for letting me do this. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you for doing what you do. Curtis Relaford here on the Saturday Special. I'm going to say take next on the computer, and that's going to connect me to Margaret in Santa Cruz, who's on with Steve in Monterey and Regina in Monterey, both with very different perspectives, both people of color. Go ahead, Margaret, you're on. Margaret.
Oh, peace be with you all. Look, Obama was born from a white woman's womb. He was raised by white people, and he was voted in mostly by white people. Miss America, Miss Teen America, Miss USA, Miss Universe are all black. Racism, properly defined, is when a person views all of the human family of a specific color or nationality, heritage in contempt and hatred, a despised human race in its entirety. Even if Archangel Michael or Jesus Christ Superstar or God himself presented himself as black or Native American or Asian, a racist would have true contempt and recoil by this race difference. We all have our crosses to bear. Some women hate men. Some women won't date a tall 6'5" guy or a 5'2" fat bald guy or a moderate income guy. They want a rich guy. In the same vein, there are those that are totally racist against American Indians. Some are hateful towards all Muslims, no matter who they are, and vice versa. The hip-hop music really disparages the black image. Prejudice is a human condition. People judge age, height, sex, religion. They just do. We all carry our crosses. Single, married, married without kids, single with kids. I love Katrina Curtis. We all need to follow our heart and examine our heart.
Well, thank you for saying that on the Saturday Special, Margaret in Santa Cruz. Our next caller is going to be none other than Mel Bason, or Mel in Seaside. Mel, you're on.
Okay, thank you. And the last name, if you want to get it correctly, is Mason.
Oh, Mason.
And,
Mel
yes,
Mason. All right.
Yes. Okay.
It says on the screen, it says in parentheses, might be a person of color with a question mark.
No, I am. I'm African American. I'm a person of African ancestry. Okay. I grew up in Seaside. I've been an activist now for well over 50 years. And growing up in this county, I've seen systemic racism in action from the time I was growing up until now. I've also been involved with the NAACP for many, many years. I am also a past president of the NAACP for this county as well. And even today, we continue to get complaints, from how police treat, the differential treatment, of people of African descent, people of color in general, by the police. Police surveil, police profile, And there have actually been some significant cases just in recent times, you know, where police departments have actually settled, or in some cases lawsuits, you know, because of their racist, the racist treatment that they've exacted against people of color. We also see, because I think we're talking about systemic racism. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold. Systemic racism, I think, is what the gentleman from Santa Cruz had brought up, and this is beyond just individual acts of hatred. This is about a system and how a system functions, how a system directs its functioning. And so we have had inordinate numbers of police killings, I think especially by the Salinas Police Department over the years, and I've had a hand in dealing with some of those issues. And almost always it's people of color. Almost always as we were struggling with police brutality and stuff a few years back, one of the gosh almighty, can't hardly think now because of my, I don't feel very well. But
I'm sorry you're not feeling well, but you're doing very well. Thank you.
Okay, good. But, you know, we had a grand jury, you know, a few years ago that had gone back and looked at the police killings of all the different police departments in this county. And those police killings, by and large, were always always the victims of those police killings were people of color, you know, primarily black and Latino. And what that grand jury came back with in this report was that it had actually gone back 20 years of police killings, and said that there were various opportunities, you know, multiple opportunities when those killings happened, where the victim would not have been killed if the police had done what they were supposed to do. But instead, the police escalated those cases, and then it resulted in the killings. Now, in those few times where whites were actually on the other end of the police firearms, the police somehow found a way. And that included recently here when there was a white man with a rifle. They actually spent a lot of time talking to that person. We've had other similar instances where the person was either black or brown, and that person was killed. That's just one example. And then we also have to talk about, if we're talking about systemic racism, you know, I think Regina had mentioned the schools, where we have an inordinate number of young, especially black children who are being placed on something called a certificate track. We found hardly any, if any at all, white students who were placed on such a track. What that does is it's basically giving you the message that you're dumb, that you can't make it. And so we will allow you to go to school because, you know, public education is mandatory. But you're not going to get a diploma. You know, what you will get is a certificate, which means that you can walk across the stage like everyone else, get a cap and gown. Everyone else will get a diploma, and you will get a certificate. And we found that, you know, inordinately, the number of people who are placed, young people who are placed on that certificate track are African Americans. There's also, if we look at the Department of Social Services, if we look at how many children, you know, are placed in child welfare who are in foster homes, we found out, again, the inordinate number of youngsters who are there are black, way out of proportion to what their percentages are in the population of this area, and very, very seldom, if at all, do the parents get an opportunity to go through, you know, some kind of process where they can, if they feel that the parent is not parenting well, they have parent education classes or programs. You know, because the idea supposedly is for families to stay together. But what we find is that this happens with white parents who are having problems. But for black parents, you know, it's almost always they're going to end up having to give up their children to the foster care system. That's about systemic racism as well. And so if you look at the police, if you look at social services, if you look at any of the other human services, black people are on the low end of the totem pole. And so I just want to say that while this gentleman from Santa Cruz obviously has his own experience,
I think you're talking about Steve from Monterey, I think. And Steve from Monterey is still on. Am I right, Steve in Monterey?
Okay.
Steve, you're still there.
I am, Michael.
Yeah, go
when
ahead.
am I going to get a chance to
Okay,
go ahead and talk to Mel. It's Mel, right?
Right, And I just wanted to also mention that the job discrimination, is a preponderant problem and stuff with black people as well. And that's still the case today. We won, so many cases with the NAACP and just with community action, around getting black people their jobs back when they have been fired, for invalid reasons, or in some cases where black people were more qualified than other people who had applied for a job. They didn't get the job. We found out about that later, and that had to get rectified as well. I just wanted Steve to know that this is my experience. Steve may have a different experience, but my experience has been this. And as I said, I'm 77 years old. I grew up in Seaside, and this has been my experience all these years.
Steve, how old are you?
56.
Okay. So you got 21 years between you. Okay. Do you want to respond while Mel is still on the line? Do you want to respond to anything he said, or do you want to, Regina? Because we do have some other callers we want to get to. So.
Well, now, I've been quiet for a long time.
You sure have.
Because I'm okay with talking with people with dissenting voices. See, I told you it was going to be a firestorm because I know how some of these folks are. As soon as you object to them, they're going to shut you down. But I will persist just the same. See, for me, at one point, I went to that Seaside office to sign up, and it was a dump. I'm sorry. It was not what I expected. It was a broken down dump. And I heard of all the money that was going in there, and I found out that each office is located has to deal with its own individual funds for that area. And at the same time, I see people at the Grammys living it up with their NAACP. I personally say that it is not the NAACP that first started. It has morphed into something else, and that's why you're going to see, and you can count this. I don't care what's being said on this show, because I've been told this before. When November comes, we'll see. They told me that in 2016. You're on the wrong side of this argument. But see, we've been listening to black leaders that's in the Democrat Party for a long time about racism and the schools and all these things. You want to change? You got to change. We know who's in control of this, especially in California. It's a one-party state. So if something isn't going right and you want to get these people out, you got to get those people out and start with something new. The Democrats have failed us with racism and everything else. And we're just sick and tired of it. So yeah, I got something to say. I think there is systemic racism, but it's so entrenched in the legal system as well as the education system, we'll be long dead before it's over with. Because you're talking about a lot of stuff in the schools. You got to start at the source. If you want kids, black kids, to get an education, you got to find out how to keep these daddies in the home. See, and when you get involved with the law, you don't have any choices. Your choice is before you get involved, because it's so hard to tell if some officer is committing racism after you give him a reason to stop you. How about you just obey the laws? The laws like don't steal, don't cheat people, these types of things. They're good for society as a whole. And blacks in particular, they commit more crimes than other ethnicities.
Oh my God. That's not true. But go ahead, Steve.
Hold up. It is true, see? And I know you're going to come at me because that's what you've been doing for the last 50 years. Anybody with a dissenting voice, you're going to shut them down. But you can come on over here. It's fine. But I'm just telling you is that my voice and 40% of the other black voices in this country, millions of blacks are saying, look, you guys are outdated. Rasmussen Poe. And those are just the ones that were brave enough to say they would back the president. You know what I mean? No. So you need to check where you guys are at. This problem starts at home with us. Is there racism in America? It's black, it's white, it's Chinese, it's Mexican. I done been I'm a businessman, and I go all over this place. I done felt it from every ethnicity there is. So you don't have to tell me what it is or how it feels like, but are you guys racist? Are you black racist? Because, see, I got them in my family. And a lot of this sounds like people who have an axe to grind with people, white people in particular, that has never done anything to you. Why don't you just fix the problems? You're part of the NAACP. You're in the education system. Why don't you put people in there that want to do something and stop voting for these Democrats with these liberal ideas that you guys subscribe to, and maybe we'll get somewhere. You know what I'm saying? But I don't buy all that. Business relationship certificate of what's this certificate track? My kid's out of school. Why are blacks on that program to begin with? You didn't tell us why they're in there, because they're failing. Why are they failing? Maybe because their mommies and their daddies aren't at home to help them get an education like I did. My kid goes to the CSUMB out there. We stayed at home. We took care of him. We put in the hours. We made him go to school, kept him out of trouble. You know what I'm saying? And then you get down to the foster homes. Why are more black kids in foster homes? That must be because there are more calls to black homes to get those kids out of harm's way. Why don't you go back to the source and tell us the whole story? See, I'm used to hearing your statistics, but you're not telling me why they're there. I'm interested in the why. Tell Michael why they're there to begin with and why they can't get back in the homes. Maybe because the parents didn't pass the goals. They didn't meet the standards to get the kids back in the home. Why you guys don't talk about that? You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know,
yeah, racism exists, and it exists in all places. America isn't the only country. America is just one country out of all the countries in the world. Every last country has slaves and had it based on race and all that other stuff. Come on, folks, be honest with this. Every white person you come up to is not racist. Obviously,
no one
you
said
work
they
with
were.
some. Well,
No
you
one
sure
said
make
they
it
were.
sound like that. You make it sound like that.
I have white friends that are my best friends, and they've told me that they have racism in their body just inherently, just because they were born from a privileged people who basically get things handed to them, not because they're smarter than anyone, but because of their privilege. White privilege. Have you ever heard of that? Why don't you go and do some research and find out?
Didn't I listen to you talk? I listened to you talk, and I listened to all these other people talk. Now, why you want to shut me down because I don't agree with you? Why don't you stop
I'm not
that?
shutting you down. I'm just having a dialogue.
You're talking over me. No, having a dialogue.
No, wait a minute. In all fairness, Steve in Monterey, I as the moderator, it's MZ talking. If I as the moderator want to make sure, do everything I can that this highly emotional issue is properly discussed on the radio program. So I've potted you down because that was a great a speech you made, and I wanted to let Regina respond to it. So she wasn't talking over you. She was just taking her chance to talk. So, if I did something wrong, it's my bad. What is it, Josh?
No,
what do you
no,
want?
I'm not.
Here, Josh, hold on a second. What do you want to say, Josh?
Since we're like about 15 minutes to take off here, I wanted to ask real quick with everyone who's on board. I even wanted to ask Curtis this too. Where do we go from here? Like, what can we do? What can people that are not persons of color can do to help combat this? And better yet, what are those who are persons of color do?
Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. Here. Josh wants to know, he wants to put this in a positive thing instead of people bitching and having different results, different perspectives. He wants to know, he'd like to use the last 15 minutes of the program. How do we move forward? What can we do to get on a positive track together? That's basically what he asked.
Okay, so I will go ahead and...
Wait, one person at a time. Regina, quickly, go ahead.
Can I do this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what I believe is the power is in the vote. And we vote people in office that are going to ensure that they make informed decisions based on the data that exists and also based on the people and the will of the people. We cannot just put people in office because they have more money. We need to put working class people in office, give them opportunities to, be on city councils. All politics is local. And the reality is that no one is saying that all white people are bad. So that is just, something that this guy Steve heard in his mind. But Steven doesn't have the data, the statistics. He's not a social worker. He says he has a business and he works with all people. Well, we work with all people too. I mean, the NAACP is a multicultural organization. But I'm not even speaking on behalf of the NAACP. I'm simply saying that I have a lived experience, and to this day, there are countless people in the community, black, white, and others, that come to community organizations to get the help they need based on the systemic racism that they're encountering every day. How do we move forward? It's through ensuring that people are engaged in the process, getting parents involved, making sure that there's more preventive services, and stop treating people like criminals and stereotyping black people. And I hear a lot of stereotyping of black people from that caller, Steve.
Okay, great. So let's go back to the caller, Steve. And we haven't forgotten about Mel also. Go ahead, Steve. Did you hear what Regina said? That seems pretty reasonable, don't you think?
I hear what she says. Some of what she says is good. It's a little bit of good mixed in with a whole bunch of other crap she's talking about. They keep talking about data and statistics. When you go to them with data and statistics, they're the first one to tell you it's not true. We heard the same thing with COVID-19. Oh, data and statistics. A month and a half ago, the data came out from Stanford. And what did they do, the liberals? Oh, no, that's not true. So you know what? I just want to say to you white guys out there and other people, don't be ashamed because of where you were born and how you were born, because you know what? My kids got privilege now because of what I did. And there's people in the black community that's going to tell them, you know what? You're black privilege, because of your mommy and your daddy. That's the way it goes, So stop hating on people because they may have been born with a little bit more money than you or whatever it is. The key to this is, number one, there's nothing to forgive unless you do an act to forgive. Number two is people just got to learn to love each other. And I'm not into all this stuff. All this stuff that they're talking about is divisive. If they have a need to go after racism, go after it. But I see a whole bunch of stuff going on here that's unnecessary. And I think my voice and a lot of voices like mine, just like in 2016, it's going to be a reality. And you guys need a gut check. Because you know what? I go with some of the stuff. Some of it is true. The justice system, the education system, the way it plays out. But let's go back to how it starts. You need to go back into the homes of these black people, and that's not a stereotype, Regina. That's not a stereotype when you got more black daddies in jail or dead than there are in the home. That's not a stereotype. That's a fact. That's what you need to. That's what needs to happen. You need to go to Chicago if you're the NAACP and tell these black people by the thousands to stop killing black people. That's what you need to do. That's where we need you the most. Go there and do something and help somebody. But all this other stuff, leave it to the board, to the birds, man. You and your racism, we know it's there. But like they said, what are you going to do about it? More programs, more money, more this. You know what? Love is what overcomes hatred. Love, L-O-V-E, love. They've attacked me. I'm used to it.
Right.
Steve this and Steve that. Steve, you know what? You haven't heard me throw any mud at them because, see, theirs come from a place of hatred. If you want to make a difference, you got to learn to love people of all colors. And I'm not going to hate on white people because some were born rich. Now, if they give me a problem, they give me a reason to hate them or to at least be upset with them, then I will. But until then, I'm sorry. And we just got to deal with the rest of the stuff. I taught my kids who are biracial how to deal with racism and how to recognize it. But we didn't go around bashing white people, telling them, oh, hey, you got to watch all these white people. Well, you know what? There's white people out there because of what they see on the news and because they went through a black city and maybe their cars were jacked up or whatever, and they got experiences too. that were bad, that was done to them by black racist people. Nobody has a key card or authorization to commit racism against somebody. Bring it down. Tone it down. You know what? I've talked to you a lot of times, Mike. You said call back. And I knew today that if any black people showed up on this show, I was going to be odd man out. That's why I told you. I already knew it, what they expect. I don't hate the other guy. I don't hate Regina. I'm glad she's got a professional
speaking
job.
of the other guy, Mel is still on with us, and he's still connected.
Yeah. Okay.
So Mel, why don't you comment on what you've heard here from Steve? Mel, are you there? Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry. I needed to pot you up. Go ahead. My mistake.
Okay.
So start again. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Well, one of the things and I'm certainly thinking that I didn't come off as saying that I didn't like white people or I hate white people. We have,
not to me you didn't.
Pointed out a group called Whites for Racial Equity, and these are folks that we've known for a very long time. One of the things that we've done is that 12 years ago, we created an organization called the Village Project. And what we've done with that organization is that we've gotten, we do a lot of counseling and therapy, and it's done from a cultural perspective. So we have within our clientele, African Americans, certainly, other people of color like Latinos, Native people, Asian Pacific Islanders. We have folks from the LGBTQ community, and we also do family therapy as well. And we deal with some of those issues that are really problematic for a lot of families, especially families of color. We also created 10 years ago an after-school program that has won state acclaim. And what we purposely did was to bring in young people of color primarily, but also some whites as well that wanted to have their kids in our program. And what we're starting to see now are those youngsters who probably would have ended up in juvenile hall, later in jail, later in prison, that we're having our first cohort of youngsters graduating from college. And these are some youngsters came into our program who could barely read and write. By the time they finished our program, they had finished high school. We have two youngsters who are graduating from York School, just graduated from York School, both of who could barely read and write when they first came into our program as real little kids. And so
your program has had quite a bit of success, it sounds like. I'm watching the clock, gang, here, and I really want to get to it. Thank you, Mel. Stay on the phone here. Stay on the line, but I'm going to take our next call. Let's see if we can get everybody who's on hold in the next 5 or 6 minutes, because that's the end of the program. So let's see who's next. Mike and Salinas has been waiting quite a while. Mike, you're on the air. Oh.
Qualify myself. My wife is black. We've been married 30 years. We dated for about 2.5 years. I agree a little bit with Mel. I also agree a little bit with Regina. You probably know one of my wife's cousins. She was president of the NAACP also for a time. I'm working here, so I got to catch my breath. Steve, I'm behind you 110%. I got 3 brother-in-laws that are black. All 3 made it on their own, without any programs, because their father was military, and he taught them to stand on your own. I'm out of breath, Mike. I was doing other things.
That's okay. Worse things have happened on the Saturday Special.
I just wanted to call and tell Steve, I understand where you're coming from, and I hear you, okay? Regina, open your eyes. That's all I'm going to say. Talk to you later.
Okay, take next. That would be Victorious in Scotts Valley. Hey, Victorious, you're on KSCO, along with Regina, along with Steve, along with Mel, and along with poor old beleaguered MZ.
Yeah, hey, MZ, and I just want to tell your listening audience, thank you. And I do want to be able to get a shout out real quick before. And Scotts Valley police departments are really racist, the police department, and I want to be able to share with members of the public as a civil society activist, as a community leader, right? in exile from the city of San Jose, I want to be able to say this, that I'm stuck here and I'm trying to find my way. But I got to say this, I have never been so harassed by all these white officers that I'm getting thrown out of a library, I'm getting thrown out of a laundromat, I'm getting thrown out of grocery stores, I'm getting thrown out of when I'm out there, you know, doing survival techniques, right? I'm getting thrown out of everywhere, and I have never been disrespected more than law enforcement right here in Scotts Valley with Chief Steve Walpole. I don't know why this small city, no more than 1,000 people, have their own police force. I don't get it. They need to shut this down. They need to allow Jim Hart to bring the sheriff over here to be able to patrol and provide community protection and service, because he does a great job. You know, they do a great job, but I don't understand why we allow this. And I want to be able to say this. In Santa Cruz County, civil society activists, such as myself and Gary Arnold, are having a hard time, Gary Richard Arnold having a hard time trying to make the systemic changes that we need. When you talk about racism, you have to start with the criminal court. People of color, particularly Mexicans in Santa Cruz County, Santa Clara County, Monterey County, are being socially dumped by the judicial system, and it stands with the public defender's office. It stands with the DA's office not coming at it right, and it stands with the judges just corrupting our common life. And the American public is tired of the political shenanigans and the judicial oppression that's coming from the criminal court. If we want to bring true healing to the community, we need to revamp the whole court system. We're tired of the scam of supporting their leisure lifestyle when
I don't know what happened.
I didn't touch it either.
And I didn't either, but thank you, Victorious. Victorious. Here, wait a second. There's only a minute left. I want to do Bridget and Seaside. Bridget, you're on the air.
Hi, I've been listening to the show, and I'm sort of amazed and a little shocked at the mentality that exists that says racism is not prevalent. I know Regina and Mel, they run a great program. I have 3 grandchildren who are succeeding now as a result of being in that program, who were failing before they got into it. And it exists, and it happens. And there has to be a change. We have to create these environments for our children to thrive in, because they are not in the regular norm of things put at the front. So I know the work that they do, and it's great work. I just happen to be driving, listening for the last hour, and listening to all the different speakers and listening to their perspectives. But you have to be real, and I'm just saying, at this point, we should have our eyes open to the fact that racism does exist. And
okay, obviously we're going to have to do more on this subject. Thanks to everybody for participating in the Saturday Special. That's it, gang. You can listen tonight at 10 o'clock to midnight for the rerun.
That's all, folks.
You're listening to KSCO.